Wander Wealthy Podcast, episode 106 with Bola Sokunbi. Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. My name is Tess Wicks. I'm the host of this show. Today, I am joined by a special guest. Her name is Bola. She's the founder and CEO of Clerical Finance, an online education platform that empowers and educates women to make the best financial decisions for their current and future selves. Bola is a rock star, you guys. We had so much fun chatting on this episode. She is a certified financial instructor, an influencer, a graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. She founded her blog. She also has a podcast, a YouTube channel, an amazing Instagram. You guys have to check out Clever Girl Finance on Instagram, and this ridiculously useful platform that helps you get access to a bunch of different courses and trainings all around finance. So this episode, I had to ask Bola how she gets it done, first and foremost. And that kind of led us into talking about the pressures on women to do it all and do it all by themselves. She openly shares that she receives help and how important that is to own up to that so that we don't spread this message that you have to do it all by yourself. We also talk about Bola's background and her story and how she lived in multiple different countries growing up. Finally, our tangible tip section is all about goal setting, especially when it comes to money and how we can sometimes get very, very overwhelmed with trying to, again, do it all, achieve all of those financial goals that we see everyone else doing, and how we can kind of bring ourselves down to earth and just pick one so we can get the best results. Like I said, this podcast is jam-packed full. We went a little bit all over the place, but it's all with a lot of direction. So I can't wait for you guys to tune in. I'm going to leave it at that, and I will see you on the other side of episode 106 with Bola Sokunbi. Bola, welcome to the Wander Wealthy Podcast. I'm super excited to have you here. Tell us where you're calling in from.
I am calling in from New Jersey in the States.
Yes. Now we have to be so specific about it. So you have a top-rated website, an amazing resource for women trying to get their financial lives in order over at Clever Girl Finance, and tons of courses and learning paths for members, access to membership and financial experts. You also have a blog, a podcast, YouTube channel, and you're coming out with a book. So I have a ton of questions around all of that. Let's start with your story, and then we'll get into how you get it all done. So Tell us how you got to this place.
Oh my God. If you had told me 5 years ago that I would be doing this, I would have thought you were crazy. But my story is kind of like, multifaceted in the sense that I started Clerical Finance as a way to share my experience with money, my saving success story, my money mistakes with other women, because I was in this space where my friends were always asking me, Bola, how did you save? One of the things that I talked to my friends about at the time was being able to save over $100,000 coming out of college in the 3.5 years that I came out of college back then. And then I started investing, I started doing all these different things, real estate, etc., and just having conversations with friends who are like-minded and just, how did you do it? How did you do it? So it started as a passion project. It still is. And at the same time, coincidentally, I was also in that space where I had just given birth to twins. And I don't know if it was postpartum depression. I just wasn't very fulfilled with my job. And I wanted to do something different, something that mattered. And so Clerical Finance was this idea that came to me in the shower, and I told a friend about it. And she's like, yeah, you should just start the blog. And that's how, Clerical Finance itself was born. But when it came to, money, my story is kind of like, it goes a little deeper because I come from a background, very traditional family background. My dad was a breadwinner. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. My mom actually got married when she was 19 years old, and my dad was early 30s, and she did not go to college. And, we lived in Europe at the time. And as my mom started getting older, as a woman in her marriage, started to see things around her with her friends that she didn't like. So, for instance, her friends would be getting divorced, or unfortunately a spouse would pass away. And when it came to financial matters, they just had no idea about where the money was, how it was managed. And a lot of times the women would get pushed out with just nothing but their kids. And my mom never wanted to find herself in this situation. And so she took it upon herself after she had me in her early 30s to go to college, and she would take me to college classes. And, she got her undergrad degree. She got 2 master's degrees. She became an investment banker. We moved back to Niger, which is where I'm originally from. She opened a hairdressing salon, a soft drinks distribution company. She had a bakery. She had all these different businesses. She was kind of like hustling, putting money together. And fast forward, several years, my dad had to retire about 15 years earlier than he planned due to health and work issues. And he was like, listen, I can't afford to send you to college abroad in the United States, in Europe, and Nigeria, nowhere. I just don't have the money. It's either going to be at the expense of my retirement, which I didn't plan to have to retire this early, or you're just going to have to, figure out something. And at the time, my mom was like, well, Nigeria was going through a period of economic unrest in the sense that colleges were always closed. Like a 4-year degree was taking people 8, 9, 10 years to complete because professors were not getting paid. There was always a strike, etc. My mom was like, well, you can't go to college here because you never know when you're going to finish or if you're even going to be able to start. But I've been putting money aside for, retirement reasons, and I will give you this opportunity. It's not a privilege. It's not a right. It's me doing you a favor by paying for you to go to college. And, your agreement with me is that you're going to get good grades. You're going to find scholarships wherever you can. And you're going to make my investment in your life, child, worthwhile. And so that was how I got to college. And so fast forward again, I'm now older. I'm done with college. I've saved money, made my parents proud, did well in school, kind of have some financial savviness about me because of what happened. And then I start looking around at my friends, and I realize as we get into our late 20s and early 30s, that I'm seeing the same thing happen that my mom was seeing with her friends, where friends are getting divorced, or friends are going through bad breakups, or things are happening and they just have no clue about finances. And oh my God, I should start talking to my friends about what I'm doing with money and what I'm learning and all these different things. And so that's, in a nutshell, my background. And so now I'm in my mid 30s and, pursuing this passion business. That's also something that I feel really strongly about when it comes to helping women do well with their finances.
So amazing. And I love your story because it goes deep. You really honor your parents and talk about how they played a big role in your financial life growing up and helping you see what was possible. I mean, your mom sounds like a superwoman, first of all, like becoming an investment banker after having, are you one of 4? Is that right?
Yes. I have 3 older brothers.
That is it's just amazing and so awesome. And beyond that, I want to kind of go into your childhood a little bit more and just talk about how you grew up around money in the sense of like the attitude around money and how that impacted your behavior with money as you came out and started making your own money after college and whatnot.
The lessons I learned about money growing up were a lot by observation, was by what I saw. Mm-hmm. My parents didn't necessarily sit me down and say, oh, let's talk about finance 101. They didn't do that. It was just more so learning. And my dad was more so like, I managed the money. I didn't know what he did. I didn't really care. Right. But it was just observing my mom and, like having her friends come to our house because they're going through this divorce, and just sitting quietly in the corner and just listening to them have conversation. My mom was like, but do you know where the money is? No, just listening to that and just seeing my mom take action to protect herself. My parents are still married, but seeing my mom, bundle me up at age 34 to go to her first college class. Those type of things were how I learned about money and what it can mean for somebody. And so growing up, I didn't really have any kind of mindset about money because I never really had to worry about it until I realized our life was changing when my dad had to retire. So we moved from living in a really nice 5-bedroom house to a very small 3-bedroom apartment. We downsized from having, I think, 4 or 5 cars to having just 1 car. There were a lot of things that we were able to do before that we just couldn't do anymore. Like even things like every year I would get every year in high school I would get a new pair of shoes. So we all wore uniforms, and every year I would get a new pair of shoes for the next school year. And it was always one pair of shoes. And I remember that one year I had to wear my same shoes from the year before, right? And it sounds like a trivial thing, but
it's a big deal when you're younger.
I would get a new a backpack for the next year of school, and that year I had to basically wear everything that I wore the year before, including my uniforms. And it was just, those type of situations made me realize, wait a minute, things are different. And, when I say we lived in a 5-bedroom house, my parents were not, rich, but they were well to do. My dad, I would call us like, by American standards, middle class. My dad had a good job. He could pay the bills. He could save, but he spent a lot of the money he earned sending my brothers to college, which was very expensive. So that's what he did with a lot of his money and a little bit that he has saved for retirement. So those are the things that I observed. And so growing up into my teens, I didn't really think about money because I didn't have to until I had to. And for me, it was very overwhelming because my life really changed. And I was like, oh my God, we're poor now. Mm-hmm. I can't even get a new pair of shoes, just one pair of shoes for school this year. I can't get it. And then coming out of college, even going through college, like the burden of what my mom was giving up for me to go to college was a lot. I felt it every single day. There was a class that I was taking. So I'm a computer science major, and there was a class that I had to take called data structures and algorithms. And it was just for me at the time a very difficult class. And I got a D in the class. It was the only class I ever failed. I was a straight A student until I took that class. And I couldn't tell her because if she knew that I had failed this class and wasted that tuition for that semester, it would have been a major disappointment. And so I ended up trying to find different scholarships, and I got a part-time job in, the library because I could work there as an international student that would cover me being able to repeat that class and also be able to cover a couple other classes. So I never told her that I failed that class until later on when she was reviewing my transcript. So it was just like this burden that, oh my God, my parents are not going to be able to retire because they're sending me to college. I dare not fail. And then coming out of college and earning money for the first time in my life, $54,000 every year in New York before taxes I was like a billionaire. But at the same time, I had to put it into perspective and say, wait a minute, I have to make sure that I don't blow this opportunity and I save because I want my parents to be proud and I want to be able to help my parents, given the fact that they've helped me so much. And so that was when I put my head down and started really saving, focusing on saving. And I was able to save that $100K by investing and starting a side hustle and all these different things. But so I think for me, it was a lot of lack of knowledge because, again, coming from a European and Nigerian system of managing money, I got out of college, got my first job. I didn't know what a 401k was. I didn't know what matching was. I didn't understand. I was like, budget. I've never budgeted in my life. So yeah, so there was, I don't know. It's hard to answer. I gave you a long answer, but kind of like multiple different things. And the one thing that I came away, from what I learned from my parents and observing my mother is that money is equal to options. And if you don't have it, you have none.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to kind of take away from. It's the idea that money can and provide you a choice so that you don't have to be stuck in whatever position or situation you might be in. Yeah,
exactly.
I love that you touched on having spent time in Nigeria and spending time in Austria and then moving to New York. And I find from my experience of living abroad, there is a different approach to money and even like the tools that are provided to folks in different countries are different, but there's totally a different mindset when it comes to money depending on the country you live in.
Yes, absolutely.
What are some things that you've maybe noticed when you were living and growing up in two different countries, but then ultimately moving to the US?
So transitioning from Nigeria, being born in Austria, I was very young. I went to part of my grade school there. I don't really remember much about money other than I had money to buy candy sometimes. But in Nigeria, definitely at the time, it was not a credit-based system. So you couldn't go to the bank and say, hey, I want a credit card. I'd only heard of credit cards in movies like Clueless. I'd never actually seen one.
What a great throwback.
Yeah, I'd never actually seen a credit card before. And I go back to Austria to go to college, and it's like I get my first debit card. I'm like, oh my God, wow, this is a card. I can go to that machine and take money out. We didn't have, things have changed. We didn't have like credit cards or like debit cards. You wanted money, you went to the bank to get money. You use your checkbook and your passbook, so that whole plastic thing was not part of my growing up. But then when I get to, Vienna, I got my first debit card. I didn't get a credit card because that was never on my mind. It was never marketed to me. Was never sold to me. Nobody ever asked me if I wanted one, so it didn't even occur to me. And then I moved to the States, and it's like every job fair, it's like a credit card company with free t-shirts and free pens. And it's like a whole big business campaign. Like, everything is about, you can have this now at just 20% interest. Like, that was one of the first things I noticed about money when I moved to the States, was that everything was buy now, pay later. Even furniture. I used to make jokes with my mom. I cannot believe people rent TVs. I just didn't understand it. People rent furniture. You can rent anything you want in your life. You can rent it and buy now and pay later. So huge contrast. Credit is something that is part of the American lifestyle. And I think it's kind of become more normal in other parts of the world, but not as much as it is here. It's just inherent. Like, turn 18, get a credit card. It's not a big deal. But what's lacking is, it's okay to use all these tools, right? You can get points, you can get miles, you can protect yourself financially from identity theft by using, credit cards for certain transactions that you can report and dispute, etc. But what's lacking is the financial responsibility, or being able to educate people. Yes, you have this credit card you can use. You have this cash advance, or you have this high limit, but here's how to use it responsibly. Here's what it means. Here's what it's, so I think there's a gap there. And for me, that was the most obvious thing, like the whole plastic mania.
Yes. Well, and you had said that credit cards it's big business. And I think that you find often when you're in Europe specifically, from what I've noticed, the government is, they provide certain protections for their citizens, but also they don't I feel like they're not letting the banks charge, or letting the banks open that up to just like, oh yeah, don't pay off your credit card. Like, the people that I interact with who find out what I do, they're like, wait, I listened to a podcast and you could just not pay off your credit card, really? And I'm like, yeah, in the States, you don't have to.
Unsecured debt, yeah. And what happens? You just get bad credit. That's all.
Yeah.
Who cares? You don't go to jail.
Like, can't buy a house.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's not like someone's going to come arrest you. You're not going to jail. You're like, nothing bad is happening to you other than you get bad credit. And, bad credit is not good, but you can still live your day-to-day life with bad credit. I mean, who cares?
And there's just other options. They're not as good, but there's other options that actually they're even worse, but you still find those other options. Whereas I think in Europe, from what I've understood, is like, you don't have you don't pay your credit card. The bank just is like, see ya, no more options to you.
It's very scary. I mean, but it's very scary. And what that brings about is, bad credit, and people get into predatory situations, and people cannot pursue other goals like home ownership, and it becomes this huge burden. So even though it seems like there's no major consequences, like, all you get is bad credit, the implications of this can stay with you for the rest of your life, especially if you don't have the education to decipher all of this and even be able to make the smart decisions in the first place. A lot of people, if you ask them, and you probably know this from talking to so many people, is they'll say they didn't realize the interest was going to be this, or they didn't really understand how to budget. They didn't know how to do this and that. That's why they got into so much trouble with credit cards.
There's so many amazing things about what the tools and options that the US can provide that some other countries may not provide. And I'm all about using credit cards if you can use them wisely, but it's like the doors that the US opens for some of these options and tools, they have to come with like a user manual, but we just don't end up reading the user manual.
Exactly.
Well, now that we went way down that rabbit hole. I'm going to bring this out because I have some serious questions around how you're able to get it all done, because I talked about it at the beginning, but you have this amazing online resource with so many courses that can take people through, and women specifically, through all of the different ways to manage money, from not only like budgeting to saving to retirement, investing, real estate, and like business and side hustle. But you also have all this content. You're writing a book. You're a twin mom. So what's the secret?
Oh my God, there's no secret. I just take it day by day. I try to prioritize my life. I try to deprioritize the things that don't matter or take up too much of my time. And I always put my family first. Sometimes I fail at that some days, but that's the focus. I don't believe that work-life balance exists. There's no perfect balance. I pick and choose that day what's going to be the priority. It could be, making sure I get to my kid's swimming class, which is what's happening today. Or I have a deadline for something and I'm missing a swimming class, for example. So it's just taking it all in stride and just getting really clear on what your goals are, what is most important to you. For me, it's, my children come first, and then I'm building a business that's going to help people. And I try to focus on the two things. What are the things that are going to help me be present as a mom for my kids? And sometimes that means that I focus on the areas of taking care of my kids where they feel my presence the most. So, I have help with my kids. I sometimes have help sometimes I will order school lunches, because I'm not there and they're eating lunch. And that way I don't have to leave them in the living room and be in the kitchen, packing up lunch and killing myself there, and instead of spending time with them, so I try to find ways to make it easy for myself, but some days it's hard. But I find the balance somehow that doesn't exist.
Yes. And I think this is important to talk about, because for so many people who are trying, especially if they're, operating in, maybe they have a 9-to-5 and they're trying to manage all their finances, figure out what all their options are, and maybe pick up a side hustle. I know this is an experience you had. You were working full-time in consulting, but you had this side hustle, and then also probably managing all of your different finances, business and personal.
And twin babies.
and two babies. How did you approach that? Because I do feel like, especially when it's money, it can feel really paralyzing, because you don't want to make you don't want to make a mistake, because you feel like if you make a mistake, it's just going to like all plummet. So how did you approach this and take on new opportunities without like totally getting overwhelmed?
Well, it's a lot of things to do at once. And so, what I did when it came to my finances was I checked in every day. And when you check in every day, it's less to do when you check in once a month or once a quarter. And I automated as much as I could. I opened my budget as soon as I got to work. It was a spreadsheet that was next to me. I typically budget in an Excel spreadsheet because that's just easy for me to, I'm on my computer all the time, easy for me to check in. Not really fond of apps because different story, but I checked my budget every single day. I already knew what my goals were that I had set, and I kept that on top of mind. And then when I was at work, I got my work done. I would come home to my kids, deal with that. And my kids at the time were waking up multiple times a night anyway. So what I would do is I would try to sleep when they slept, and when they were up, I would take care of them and spend 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours doing some work. Sometimes I would end up staying up late until when they would wake up for the first time in the night. Like, let's say I would stay up from like 9 until like 1 o'clock, because I knew they were going to wake up at 1 o'clock anyway. And then I would take care of them and then put them to bed. And then sometimes I would wake up earlier. I just found a flow to make it work. And then I got to a point where, the business was doing well, and it was no longer physically or even mentally sustainable to be doing the stay up till 1, wake up at 5. And go to work, come back, take care of twins. It just wasn't going to work. But I think that for short periods of time, I did that for about 3 years. You can make certain sacrifices. You can, try to make it work. There's no easy answer to this. I struggled many times. There were times where I just couldn't come home and work on the business because I was so exhausted, and I would go and collapse into bed, and I wouldn't know who fed my children or how they took a bath or what happened. My husband would just have to figure that out, or my mom would come help me. And there are times where I really needed to ask for help. And so I asked my mom, I got a nanny, and I was like, listen, I need you to work extra hours. I need this, I need that. And so I took it day by day, but it was doable. I know when I usually talk about, people get scared and they're like, oh, but wow, Bola, not everybody can stay up late, but you have to get clear on what your why is, why you want to accomplish something, because you'll find that in your life, when you want something really bad, and for me it was, building a business and financial stability and all that kind of stuff. When you want something really bad, you will go out of your way to make it happen, even if it's a minor thing, even if it's finding a dress in your size at a mall that's 45 minutes away because you've checked every other store, they don't have them. You will find ways to make it happen. And that was my way of finding a way to make it happen for myself. And so sometimes if I had to work from home Fridays, I was 50% working for work and 50% working for my business. Hey, I would make sure that I got all my work done. Sometimes I would, if I got all my work tasks done by 4 o'clock, I would stay till like 5 or 5:30, waiting for traffic to die down. But in that time, instead of just lounging around the office and talking to coworkers, I would be working on my own thing as well. So you just have to find ways to make it work that fit into your lifestyle, and understand that it's not like when you're trying to make changes with your personal development, with your finances, it's not going to be easy. It never is. Otherwise we would all be billionaires and like living on yachts on the Gulf of, somewhere, I don't know.
Right. Exactly. And I take two major things away from that, which is, one, you can do anything for a season. Like, you were just doing it because you wanted it so bad, but you were also like, eventually it wasn't sustainable and you just have to then pivot from there. And the second thing is like being willing to ask for help. And I think there's such a stigma especially for women, to like feel like they need to do it all themselves. And it's like, we're always, I'm one of the problems is I'm like, how do you do it all? And it's like, well, I don't do it all by myself. I have people that help me. But like, then saying that is like, well, how dare you have people that help you? You're supposed to do it all yourself. So it gets so messy, but like, really it's, owning it and being like, I asked my mom and I hired the nanny and had them extend the hours. And that's what you have to do when you have this other thing that you really want to get done.
Absolutely. I mean, even to this day, I actually now have an au pair. And that is for many people like, oh my God, why do you have an au pair? You can't take care of your kids, or you're so busy, or what's your problem? You're just wasting money. But it's like, the options are either to run myself into the ground pursuing my goals, become a full-time stay-at-home mom, which is not something I want to do, and I do respect that, or it's just get the help I need and sacrifice to pay for that, and figure out, and say to myself, okay, this is something that I'm going to sacrifice for this year and next year, and build it into my budget and make sure that I'm able to pay for that and accommodate my goals, and make sure that I figure it out in a way that it makes sense for everything that we're doing and it doesn't impact our financial goals. So sometimes women, we carry all this burden. When I first had my twins, I ran myself ragged because I didn't have any help. I was so exhausted. I was the nastiest version of me you could ever imagine, because I was perpetually tired. I was crying all the time. I couldn't do anything. Even work was depressing to go to. I was not nice to my coworkers. I just wasn't like, but I had all this money that I was making at work, and all this money that I had saved, but I was just not nice. What's the point of that? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get help. We're going to build this into our budget. We're going to, put some of our income into childcare. And oh my God, my mood lifted. The way I felt about myself lifted. I was working out. I was so much nicer to everybody, to my husband. I was rested. I was like, this is a worthwhile investment. This makes sense. At the end of the day, we're not placed on this earth to pursue money and build it up and then die. We're here to leverage money to give us a good quality of life. And so I feel really sad that people judge women, or even other women judge women, because they're trying to create good qualities of life for themselves. Mm-hmm. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, and I was reading on your personal blog, which, by the way, you also have a personal blog. Yeah. It was like the things that people say to female founders that would never get said to a male. And I think in that same vein, it's like no one would ever be like, oh, male founder, you have an au pair. But like, of course, as a female founder, that's something that you have to, talk about and address.
Yep, exactly. Like there's just, I don't know. I feel like we're still in this space. If you look at it objectively, a lot of the men who say these things to me, who say these things to me, are men who they did not see their mothers doing what I'm doing, to be honest, right? And even if they saw their mothers, they definitely did not see their grandmothers doing what I'm doing. So it's kind of like a major shift for them, but it's also on their part being naive and not understanding the power that women carry, and the fact that, when you talk to a woman like that, when you diminish a female like that, you're diminishing all the hard work that has been put into who you are. Because women sacrifice, right? Their mother sacrificed to make them into the successful person. Yeah, so that post was very more so, I'm tired of people giving me ridiculous feedback because I'm a woman. I know you would never say this to a man. You would never, ask a man how many kids he has that's presenting a professional pitch to you. You would never ask them what their wife thinks about what they're doing. Nonsense like that. And so, yeah, we have a long ways to go with gender equality, a long ways.
Yeah. And I think we all have our own stories similar to that. And it's just it's just unsettling, but it makes us tougher in the same way. So I guess we'll use that as the silver lining going forward.
We are resilient. We've always been as women.
Yes. So I want to go into the tangible tips round, and this is kind of a perfect transition because it's really, taking what you've done to accomplish so much and breaking it down to the idea of, all of this is kind of around the topic of goal setting. And you wrote a post, which I'm going to link to in the show notes, about how to set and achieve your financial goals. And it is so detailed. I love it. And first, I just want to kind of dive into, how do you narrow down what you should really be focusing on when you're trying to achieve all these financial goals? Because of course we hear you should be investing, you should buy a home, you should save for emergencies, you should do this. How would you, help someone approach what to focus on when, again, all these things just feel impossible and overwhelming?
I think you want to bring it down to what matters to you, what's going to make you happy, and what you truly want to accomplish. And that's really understanding your why. And I think when we look at ourselves in this world, we are faced with a lot of standards. We're faced with the standards of our family, of our peers, of our coworkers. And, it's standards like, by age 25, you must have gotten married. By age 30, you must have a house. By age 65, you must have $1 million for retirement. It's like these standards that the world has put aside for us. But are those the things that you really want? And will having those things, will pursuing those things be something that makes you truly happy? And so you have to bring the personal into your personal finance and say, what do I really want? What are the options I want money to be able to create for myself? What are the dreams I have for myself? And that's how you kind of start to narrow down what you want to focus on and prioritize accordingly. If your debt is something that's killing you and it's blocking you from all of the other things you could be doing, traveling, whatever it is you want to do, then maybe that's priority number one. And you want to try to get no more than 3 to 5 goals so you don't overwhelm yourself. And you can have a long list, but you can shelf them until you've completed your priority 1, 2, 3 top goals. And so it's important to really determine what is your why, what is going to make you happy. Because at the end of the day, if you're not motivated, if you're not excited about what you're pursuing, it's just going to end up being this perpetual goal that you dust off every single year, but you don't make progress towards it. And the reason why you don't make progress towards it is because you don't want it. And let's say you even accomplish the goal, you may accomplish it and still not be happy because at the end of the day, it wasn't something that you really wanted for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you say, you have to be motivated, otherwise you just will keep dusting it off every year. And and the idea that you can have a bunch of goals, but you can shelf them until that's that next highest priority. That's
exactly.
So good. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see students and clients of Clerical Finance make when it comes to setting and taking action towards their money goals?
So number one is people get caught up in the big, massive goal. I want to save 10,000. I want to save 100,000. And they forget that everything adds up little by little. So they tell themselves, if I want to save 10,000, but there's no way I can ever save the $10,000 this year. So that's just a useless goal. But what about what you can save this week and next week? And how about all the ways that you can cut back on how you're spending your money every single day that can add up into a big chunk of money and get you closer to that $10,000? And so that's a big mistake people make, because they will make progress, but they will count their progress as nothing because they will think it is too small. And as a result, they will not keep up with the habit or with the consistency. So that's a big mistake that people make. Another thing is people just don't have the accountability to keep them in check. So there's nothing that requires them to accomplish this goal. There's nobody that they've told. There's no one that they owe it to. And so it's like, well, nobody knows. And so even if I don't accomplish it, it doesn't matter. And so I'm a huge fan of accountability, telling somebody who is like-minded, who is either on the same path as you and serious about it to accomplishing their goals, or someone who has already accomplished the goal that you want to accomplish, and telling that person, hey, this is what I want to do. Because when you put your goals out there and other people know about it, you will not want to disappoint them, and you're more likely to focus on actually achieving them. Another thing is people just set goals and they come back to them. They set goals on January 1st and they come back to them on December 31st. Like, oh my God, 1 year went by. I didn't accomplish any of these goals because you didn't check in on them. You didn't look at them every day. You didn't track your progress. You didn't do any of that. Goals are not meant to be set and forgotten. Those are no longer goals. There's something else. So you have to check in on your goals. And then final mistake is life happens. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get sidetracked. You're going to get set back. All these things are going to happen because otherwise it would not be life. And a mistake people make is, instead of figuring out how they can come back, instead of determining what the lessons are, instead of determining how they can avoid this from happening the next time or figuring out how they can recover, they're like, woe is me. I'm not meant to be successful. YOLO, I'm not going to worry about any goals right now because guess what? I tried it and it didn't work, so whatever. That's a big mistake. If you look at all the successful people that you admire, they've had major setbacks, major failures. They've made major mistakes. And the only reason why you can look at them and admire their success today is because they went back to those situations. They looked at the mistakes. They looked at the errors. They looked at the setbacks and they said, okay, what can I learn from this? What can I do differently? How can I change my situation? And they picked themselves back up and they dusted themselves off and they kept going. So really key.
Thinking about the saying, like, life happens, that's such a thing that, like, your dad would say to you after you mess up. But, like, if you can say it to yourself while you're setting your goals, like, know that this is going, like, shit's going to hit the fan, but know that going into it, I think that's really powerful because not only is it like, then I can, overcome, but also, especially when it's finance, I feel like when I work with people and they're setting financial goals, they get all caught up into, well, that means then I have to hit it. And it's like, no, something's going to happen. You're going to have to move, or you're going to get another job, or maybe, so you have to take care of someone totally unexpected. And you have to expect for life to happen before it happens. And then, your dad's like on the phone saying, well, life happens. I told you so. Like, having that top of mind can really help because then you'll know to expect it.
Exactly. You said it perfectly.
And the other part that you had mentioned with the accountability, you have this little like graphic on your website about like setting epic goals, and it's like in a circle. And the fourth thing is surrounding yourself with like-minded people that will support and motivate you. And I love that because I think that it's so true. Oftentimes, if you look at your friend group or you look at even some of your coworkers or your family, they so easily can impact you. So either knowing, if they're impacting you in a bad way, knowing that, okay, that's maybe somewhere I need to put some boundaries up, or knowing that you can tap into that. Like for me, I used to be an actuary. All we would do was talk about money. It was so fun. Like I just spent the weekend with my ex-actuary friend and all we did was talk about money in a way that's like nerdy and weird, but like that's what got me into this. And I think you can always tap into your community and find the people where it's not weird to talk about your goals and talk about, money if that's one of your goals. And they can also kind of be your support group and your accountability if you're really looking for that.
Yes, and the one thing I will add is you just want to be really mindful about who you share your goals with because not everybody understands, not everybody gets it, and also not everybody cares.
Hmm.
And when you're sharing your goals with just anybody and everybody, they're going to give you feedback whether you want it or not. And sometimes the feedback can be the reason why you get set back because they'll tell you they don't believe in your goals, and then you will start to tell yourself, well, I also don't believe in my goals.
Yeah, I feel like that's really important if you're someone who's looking into like side hustling or building your own business too, especially because that just like floods you with self-doubt then. And that's like the worst thing you can have when you're trying to put yourself out there.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to go into the money round. And this is, us getting to know your money a little bit better in a fun way. So I'd love for you to tell us what your kind of like current money plan is. How do you make money? What do you spend your money on? And what are you saving for? What's that next thing that you and your husband and your twins are saving for?
So wait, I'll start with what I'm saving for. So right now, I actually just did an Instagram live on this. So we talked about financial goals. My biggest priorities right now are saving for retirement, which that's kind of like it's kind of turning along, but also saving for my kids' college education. That's a priority item for me. I want to give them the opportunity, not privilege, the opportunity to be able to go to college with as much support as they can financially from us, without impacting our financial goals for our retirement and things like that. Also saving money to for a couple of investments we want to do in the future on real estate. And saving money in my business to put it towards projects to grow Clerical finance. What I spend my money on, I spend the bulk of my money every month on groceries. We don't really eat out a lot, but I like to have good food at home all the time for my kids. So I typically am always packing them school lunches unless there are days where I just can't. Dinners at home with my husband, nice dinners, snacks, things like that. And I always explore at the grocery store. So that is usually like my weakest point in my budget. I also like to put money aside to reward myself because I work so hard and I love handbags. Everybody who knows me knows this about me. So I specifically luxury handbags. So I try to I typically buy a handbag once a year, once every 18 months, something like that. I have a crazy story of having a massive handbag collection. Not anymore. I have very few handbags now, but that's something I like to, save money for.
Yeah,
And then,
that could be a save.
yeah, I save money for that. And obviously, if I need the money for other things, then the budget, the handbag kind of gets thrown out the window, and the money goes towards the thing I need it for. But it's never at the expense of my goals or of my savings or like anything like that.
Mhm.
How I earn money in my business. So with Clever Finance, and also from speaking. From a book I have coming out. It's called the Clerical Finance book. And so that's my primary way of earning money, and then also passive income sources from investments. I think I answered all the questions. Am I
Yes,
missing any?
you did. Yes,
Okay.
no, that's perfect. I love that you save for your handbags. I think that's such an important thing is like people think, oh, well, if I budget or if I have to save money, it always has to be like, then I can't have fun or then I feel like I'm going to be poor. And it's like, no, you can save for travel. You can save for handbags. You can save for splurging on whatever the
Yeah,
heck you want.
it keeps me excited. Like you have to bring it back into perspective. Like you're not, I said at the beginning of the podcast, you're not here to just gather money and stack it up and then just die, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to plan for your future self, plan for your children, your generations. That's amazing. But while you're alive, and you're working so hard and you're budgeting, you've paid off debt, you have savings, give yourself something to be happy about.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be handbags. It can be whatever that thing is, travel, shopping, eating out, taking your kids on vacation, whatever it is. You have to reward yourself within reason. If you're paying off debt, then maybe you're not buying handbags, right? Maybe instead you're spending $25 a month to go get your nails done so you can feel good
Right.
about yourself as you go through this process of becoming debt free.
Totally. My other question is, I'm just curious, why is it important for you to say that, paying for your kids' college is the opportunity, not the privilege?
Oh, because my mom did that for me, and it's something that I cherish. It's a gift that I am forever grateful for, And I don't have student loans as a result, but also just being exposed to what she sacrificed to give that to me just opened my eyes to possibilities when you have money. And for my kids, I am teaching them about money now. I'm teaching them about investing. I'm teaching them about, giving back and like being responsible and how we can't always buy every candy at the grocery store because it costs money. They're learning these things at 5 years old, but also just, like, why shouldn't I? I'm working so hard. Why shouldn't I give my children a good life? Why shouldn't I help them avoid student loan debt? Why shouldn't I transition wealth to my children and my children's children? Like, we're not like, if I'm working so hard, I want it to have value, right? It's going back to the whole point. It's not about saving money to stack it up somewhere. It's about helping others and giving back. And that's one way, giving to my children, not just to my children, but to me, there's value in that. And just giving them, a head start and having them understand the value of that start that they're getting. That's why I consider it an opportunity. And I tell them, we're going to the grocery store to buy snacks. It's not because it's your right. It's because I'm doing you a favor by spending my money on your snacks. What does that mean? It means we don't waste our snacks. We don't throw them in the trash if we're tired of them. And we say thank you for buying us this, because there are other kids in the world who don't have what we have. So yeah, it's just something that I want to do.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Bola, we're going to go into the quick and dirty Q&A. This is just some fast-paced questions to wrap up the show. And the first question is my favorite, but it's the weirdest. So what is one totally random thing that you can't stop thinking about lately? Not money related. Just gotta be random. Yeah.
SEO. It's been on my mind. I woke up last night. My daughter had a nosebleed, and when I went back to bed, I was reading about SEO on Medium for like 2 hours.
And for those who aren't aware, SEO is search engine optimization. Yes. So I think I can tell that you studied computer science in college.
Yes. And the SEO is specifically as it relates to people being able to find Clerical finance.
Yes. Aren't we always thinking about SEO as business owners? What or who is your favorite person to follow on social media?
So there are two people right now, and that's because I'm just really curious about their lives, and they're both Asian actresses. The first one is Priyanka Chopra, and the second one is Heart Marie Escudero. She's from the Philippines. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right now, but her name is Heart Marie. If you want to Google her, I'm just curious. They live they're very beautiful women. They're also very impactful, and they're like ambassadors, and they also have amazing wardrobes. And I'm just curious about their mindsets because they're very positive, and I love them. So they've been of interest to me lately.
Yeah. I listen to these pop culture podcasts because that's my guilty pleasure. And they always are talking about like Priyanka Chopra and Nick Jonas. Yeah. And I think they're like, I don't get this. But I feel like people don't realize that Priyanka Chopra is like very, very, very famous, like way more famous than Nick Chopra or Nick Chopra, Nick Jonas. Yeah, his last name should be Chopra.
She's massive. She's so much more famous than he is. I think America is just getting to know her.
Yeah. It's a shame. Like she was on Quantico and then it got canceled, and it's like she needs a bigger platform.
Yeah, she's a better show.
Yes. Although I did like the show, but that's just because I have always wanted to be in the FBI. So, what is your favorite money book?
Mine,
aside from your own.
I know. Okay, so my favorite money book of all time is Smart Women Finish Rich by David Bach. My next favorite book, which you didn't ask me about, but I'll tell you anyway.
Please do.
Is Nice Girls Don't Get Rich. And I forget I know the author's name, but I'm blanking on it right now. But it's like a really popular book. Nice Girls Don't Get Rich. Lois P. Frankel. It's right in front of me right here.
Cool. Okay, I will link those up in the show notes. Bola, thank you so much for coming on the show. Your last parting words, other than telling us where we can find you, is your best piece of financial advice you've been told that you would like to pass along.
That my dad told me was penny wise, pound foolish. And what that really means is if you don't know how to manage your money when you have a little, right? If you can't build a habit and consistency when you have a little, it doesn't matter how much money you make, you will never be financially successful.
Great. All right. Tell us where we can find you, how we can get on our hands on your book in June, I believe, and how we can keep in touch with Clever Girl Finance.
Yeah, so you can find me on the website, clevergirlfinance.com, on Instagram at Clever Girl Finance. We have a really awesome Instagram account, on Facebook, Clever Girl Finance, and on Twitter at Clever Girl CGF. I also have a podcast called the Clever Girls Know Podcast, and it's on iTunes, everywhere it's a podcast, except for Spotify, not there yet. We have a YouTube channel, Clever Girl Finance, and you can get the book at clevergirlfinance.com/book, but it's going to be available at everywhere you buy books, so Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Audible, Google Play, Kindle, all of the places. So, but you can pre-order it on Clever Girl Finance's book, and you can click on whichever retailer you want to purchase it from that link.
Fantastic. Bola, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me on, Tess.
And that's a wrap. Episode 106 with Bola was so much fun. Did you guys like this episode? If you did, I would love it if you would take a screenshot, or if you're in Spotify, you can just go to share and share the episode on Instagram. Tag me, Tess_Wicks, and tag Clever Girl Finance so we can share, and thank you for spreading the good word. For links and resources from this episode, head to wanderwealthypodcast.com/podcast/episode 106. One last thing I have to mention before I let you guys go is I've actually created 2 really great things in the past couple weeks that I'm really excited to share, and hopefully it's going to help you take that next step in your financial journey. First is my free 5-day money plan course. This is something that I've created in replacement of the budgeting training that I used to have. This is way more comprehensive and is really going to help you get from point A to point Z on your financial journey and getting after at least one of your money goals. You can sign up for this free 5-day email course by going to wanderwealthy.com/moneyplan. Now, if budgeting your money or hitting some personal financial goals feels guilty for you, it feels like you're not even there yet because you might be an online business owner who's trying to just make money in your business, then you will benefit from the guilt-free spending system. This is an online workshop that I'm hosting at the end of May, and I'm going to be taking you through the first step of my 5-step system for online business owners, coaches, consultants, those who are service-based, to help them claim their worth, define what they need to be paying themselves so they can hit some great personal financial goals and discover those next steps to hitting some purpose-driven revenue goals in their business. Now, why do I call them purpose-driven revenue goals? Because I'm so sick of hearing the 6-figure goal or the 5-figure per month income goal from all these business owners. To me, these numbers, although are great to strive for, are vanity numbers because they don't have any depth to them. Like, why do you want to be a 6-figure business owner? Or why do you want to have 5-figure months? And that's where I come in. I help business owners define the why behind their revenue goals. What's it going to take to give them a fair wage and salary as the main employee of their business? What's it going to take so that their business can start investing in other employees potentially? Or maybe that business coach that you've been looking to invest in for so long? And what does it mean in order to be able to confidently set aside money for taxes and profit? This is a money system that I help online coaches and consultants develop in their business and their financial lives. And I'm teaching the first step of the system in the guilt-free spending system. So if you want to join, you can go to wanderwealthy.com/GFSS, check out the webpage, see if it's the right fit for you, and you can sign up for the wait list, and then I will send you an email immediately upon the doors being open so you can join us for this workshop. By the way, the workshop will be taking place the last week of May, starting on the Tuesday after Memorial Day. So just look out for that. If you're tuning into this episode on a later date, you can most likely still get on the wait list for the next workshop. So don't wait around. Go to wanderwealthy.com/GFSS and get yourself on the wait list. All right, my loves, that is it for this episode. I hope that you got something out of that you can take and start implementing into your financial life so you can feel confident in your money decisions and go forward without any guilt worry, and totally empowered. Until next time, I hope you wander wealthy.